Hello nerds and welcome to Into the Wild, your favourite wildlife and conservation podcast where we look at all things, well, wildlife and conservation.
This is a podcast of curiosity where we know we don't have all the answers.
Oh, that's my co-host Nadia, by the way.
Hi. But it doesn't really matter because we're here to learn and crucially listen to those who are affected by and closest to the issues that we as conservationists tend to pick over from our comfy living rooms.
So strap yourselves in, open up your luggles, grab a brew and join us as we geek out over nature, share our love for wildlife, rarely take ourselves seriously, all whilst learning. Oh, and we sometimes swear. I think one of the best things ever is in autumn and winter having a cup of tea in the afternoon. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I agree.
Why did that take you so long to agree?
Well, because I went through this whole... If you really want if you really want a breakdown of how my brain works, it was basically
Not
like,
that deep.
God, I drink tea like on the hour, all day, every day of the year. And then I was like...
Do you?
Like, not every hour on the... Like, a lot.
Oh, I have three a day. I have one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and one about 9 o'clock at night.
What, with caffeine in?
Yeah, it doesn't affect me. I still sleep. Although I usually have walked and run about 15 miles in a day, so...
Oh my God, you keep rubbing this in. Like, I've been really sedentary today. Ryan,
some of us are getting out.
Me and Ryan obviously have like 5 minutes chat before we start podcast. One of the first things he was like mocking me. He was like, "Oh yeah, because I've been out working today."
I have been out working. Have you been out working?
Yes, I've been outside sanding one of my doors. Actually,
sanding one of your doors.
Yes, I have.
What's been your nature highlight this week, Nadders?
As I was sanding my door, in the in-between bits, I could hear behind me a little goldcrest singing its little heart out. And
oh, that's nice.
It was really lovely. I actually got my friend Luke to come and have a listen.
That's even nicer. That bumped up the story, I'll be honest.
The story? Oh my God, are we being ranked on these? Okay, hang on, let me think of something better.
Of course. Well, I was just, it's a nice story, but the fact that you like called a friend in to go, you've got to hear this.
Go on then, what's yours?
Like you were a music producer in 1958 hearing Elvis for the first time. Kid, come here, you gotta hear this guy.
Ryan, I think you are overestimating our listeners. Like, that's a very you reference that you would find exciting.
People have seen the film Elvis, surely.
Is there a film?
Or surely
Elvis?
that's a common reference when, back
what?
in the day.
A common reference? Oh, do you remember the 1950s? When...
No, I mean, like, it's always a music producer somewhere in a story that's like in a bar and there's a band on and they get the phone and go, Derek, you gotta hear this. I've got the next big thing. And then he puts the phone out and he plays it down the line.
Okay, just to help the audience then, for any maybe like Gen Z listeners, do you want to give a Gen Z example of that then?
There is not an example.
Name a current artist.
You show them a track on Spotify.
Okay.
Or send them a reel.
Tell me your nature highlight this week, my love.
Mine actually happened today as well. I was on Hampstead Heath on Kenwood Estate, part of English heritage. And I was stood right in the middle of the field next to two oak trees. I'd hazard a guess about 150 years old.
What was the girth?
1.5 2 foot.
Oh.
Yeah.
1.5 2 foot girth? Are you talking diameter or radius?
I didn't measure it. I had 6 dogs. I didn't measure it. But that wasn't my highlight. The highlight was the 2 kestrels in the tree above. And because there's no leaves on the trees yet, I could see them so clearly. They were only about 20 foot above me. And they were flying into the woods, back out the woods, into that tree. I'm not sure what they were doing. Maybe a game of tag. But, it was lovely to watch them.
Did you tell a friend or show a friend at the time?
I told the dogs.
Nice. That's nice. So we've got kestrels potentially getting frisky. They should be thinking about nesting.
I think so. I think that was something.
Corvids and birds of prey do nest early, so January, February, things will start happening.
The corvids were not happy.
They never are, to be honest with
you. They never are, They're very goth for the bird world, aren't they?
That's such the goth of the bird world.
Apart from the Jays are more like the emos.
The Jays, give me some time to think about it and I'll tell you exactly who they are in society.
Cool. We'll come back to that at the end of this episode. Okay, so news time. Do you mind if I start?
Moose? Is this correlated?
Did I say moose?
I think so.
I meant news. No pun,
This is
no
a new
joke
segment
there,
every
just a
week.
slip of the
Any
tongue.
cow-related environmental nature news, we're going to have
Anything.
news first.
No, news. I'm going to start with mine, and I'm getting this from the Mammal Society on their website. They shared it on Instagram, and basically, the greater mouse-eared bat was finally declared. This is good news, although it does not sound like it at the beginning. It was declared extinct in 1992, following decades of decline. However, in 2002, a single male was discovered hibernating in disused railways in Sussex, which would be the only one all the way until January 2023. Members of Sussex Bat Group were astonished to find a second greater mouse-eared bat hibernating in the same area. Since those two sightings, teams of experts have been monitoring and surveying to look for any further individuals, but to no luck or joy. Nothing in 2024. The worst was being feared, right? Suddenly, this year, 18th of January, a greater mouse-eared bat again was found hibernating within the South Downs National Park. This was positively identified, examined, and found to be an adult breeding female. Conservationists have ringed this bat to be able to identify it in the future monitoring and research surveys for this rare species.
It's great news. I've got so many thoughts.
Why are you laughing?
Because, do you know what? So many thoughts. I wish I had a notepad. So much has come up for me while you were telling this news. First of all, bat people, are you looking hard enough?
Wow. Jesus. I did not think your first point was going to be, first of all, I'm coming for the bat scientists.
I know. I'm sorry. I was actually in a meeting with someone from Bat Conservation Trust today. And actually, we did have a lovely celebratory chat. It's such lovely news, actually.
It is. I mean, it's just, it kind of gives you a bit of a bump going. We don't know everything. There could be still more out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And breeding, hopefully. But then also just like the reductiveness of going, she's a breeding female. Put a ring on it. There's something so just like, oh, it's so human. It's so annoying. Did we do a lovely like bat ceremony? And maybe we could have like danced or done something really beautiful. It's like, grab her. She can breed.
Grab it.
Put a ring in it.
What would happen at your bat ceremony?
Oh my gosh. Probably. Oh gosh, it's quite difficult. Probably be at night time would be the ceremony.
Yes.
I think it would
daytime bat ceremony. Are you mad?
Maybe a twilight bat ceremony. Okay. Maybe we'd do some interpretive dance.
What would you be interpreting?
Well, you would be the moth, I would be the bat, and we'd maybe.
Why would I be? What? First of all, why am I there?
Oh my god! Do you know what? If you were
this
invited,
is your bat ceremony,
right? In this magical imagination thing in my head, I honestly thought it was more risky to not invite you to an imaginary thing, but you're still pissed off.
Do you know what? Fair point. I would have kicked off if you hadn't invited me.
Exactly. Anyway, so there's that. And then the other thing that made me laugh was about, like, the greater mouse-eared bat. I feel like...
clutching at straws, really,
well,
a little bit.
What? I mean...
Is it even a species?
Its ears don't even look like... The mouse-bat relationship there, you know? I think if I was a greater mouse-eared bat, I'd be like, great, okay, well...
the slightly longer, greater-eared mouse bat.
Give them. I think bats have got stupid names anyway. I don't think they've not got like moth-like names. Moths have got great names.
You are not
like spectacle
bat
moth.
positive today.
I'm not bat positive.
Having a go at the scientists, having a go at the bats. Why don't you just wind your neck in? Celebrate the greater. What was it called? The greater mouse-eared bat.
Do you know
As
what?
I look down at my notes.
We have to celebrate our pitiful wins in this country, don't we? When it comes to.
I can't remember every species.
I know. No, nor should you.
Nor should I. I'm not an academic.
Anyway, talking about.
Go on.
Heard what Racheal Reeves said this week. Also, can I just say, that was a perfect segue. And as a podcaster, what I should have done is gone down that, but I had to stop to just say, like, we decided at the beginning of January to do weekly nature news. And there's been so much news every single week.
It's been so much. We thought we were going to struggle at first.
I'm waiting for the dry week of just like, you know,
Another
a
bat.
story about like a pensioner putting up a bird box. That was kind of nice.
No, but what's Racheal Reeves said this week?
Well, Racheal Reeves, our Chancellor,
Yeah.
made a speech this week mocking a la Boris Johnson, can I just say, because he did this.
Right.
Mocking the fact that, you know, no longer will bats and newts stop developments. I can't remember. I'm not going to say what she said verbatim, but very, very absolute dog shit comments from our Chancellor, which clearly indicate, first of all, the fact that our politicians are so disconnected to nature, because nobody that knows nature
Well, I think this kind of goes back to what you said a couple of episodes ago.
ever say anything like that, but also this horrible
Them
kind of
not
like
caring,
nature
yeah.
always being the scapegoat for the lack of developments. You know, there have been approvals for 1 million homes that haven't been built. Like, it's not nature that's stopping them. We're just not building houses. We just haven't been building houses. This idea that wildlife, newts and bats have actually stopped the progressional development in this country is a load of old just tross. I don't know, whatever.
Absolutely.
You know, though I did read a really useful little summary by the Wildlife Trusts. Thank you very much.
Is this your news?
Yeah,
is this
this
your
is
news,
my
by the way?
news.
Was it Racheal?
Well, yeah.
Racheal Reeves was your news.
Yeah, is that okay?
Well, yeah, no, absolutely. You just segued it in so smoothly.
That you
I
didn't
thought it was
even
just a
we
chat.
didn't
No,
even
no,
know.
Mars, it was so professional.
It's this continuous spaffing off by successive governments that wildlife and nature, protecting wildlife and nature and restoring our ecosystems is somehow the antithesis of economic development in the country, which is not true. So we know that about 50% of companies on the London Stock Exchange actually depend highly or moderately on nature. And actually 100% of stuff depends on nature, quite frankly, because of what we extract from the world. But, and so the fact that like restoring our ecosystems and supporting them undermines economic growth is just kind of really short-sighted and stupid. But like we've been, you know, as nature organisations and campaigners for decades, we've been saying like, they're not mutually exclusive. You know, we can restore our environment, but also have like a decent quality of life and be able to do things in this country. But if you remember, Boris Johnson did also make a comment about great crested newts, and you know, we kind of stopping them. But yeah, more than 1 million homes have already been granted planning permission since 2015, have not been built. So it's not really the environmental regulations that have stopped that. So yeah, I think it's just weirdly, annoyingly made the scapegoat all the time, and it's really frustrating that you know, now we've got a Labour government. You'd expect or hope, maybe naively, for things to change, but the same rhetoric is coming out that we must grow at all costs, that there is this like growth mentality of like, actually we've got to grow. We can build houses in places that don't damage wildlife. It doesn't have to be on, you know, really precious habitat like ancient woodland, things that can't be restored. There are places to build houses. It might cost more money, but you know, it's not wildlife really that's stopping it. And all these projects you know, continuously undermine the habitat regulations. So we've got some really good laws in place, the Wildlife and Countryside Act and the habitat regulations, which basically put in protections for almost precious species, and they're constantly undermined as the thing that's stopping economic growth. And it's just like, maybe it's all the fucking billionaires that are stopping economic growth. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah. No, that trickles down, doesn't it?
We're just not catching it hard enough.
I'm just not in the right place at the right time. Hey nerds, sorry to interrupt the show, it's Ryan here. I just wanted to pop on to tell you something quick. We always want Into the Wild to be a free and accessible show, but it does cost to run this thing. So if you ever have any spare pennies or pounds and you want to chuck it towards your favourite nature, wildlife and conservation podcast, then you can do so by going to www.ko-fi.com/intothewildpod. The link is in the write-up of this episode. Anything you're able to give goes straight back into the shows we produce. Anyway, I'll shut up now. Back onto nature news. Right, my turn.
Go on then.
Rosebank Jackdaw mean anything to you?
I mean, they sound like beautiful things in nature.
I mean, they kind of.
I know they're not.
They are things in nature. So the courts today kind of, well, I'm going to put this very simply. Climate campaigners basically had a massive win today as we record this on Thursday the 30th. The decision to greenlight a giant new oil field off Shetland has been ruled unlawful by the courts in a major win for climate action that scientists say is urgently needed. The proposed Rosebank development, the UK's biggest untapped oil field basically, had been given the go-ahead in 2023 under the previous government, but today the Court of Session in Edinburgh sided with campaigners and climate experts in ruling that the original decisions to permit Rosebank and a second smaller gas field called Jackdaw were unlawful, as they had not taken into account the carbon emissions created by burning any oil or gas produced. From Greenpeace, Philip Evans said, called it a historic win. He then said that the age of governments approving new drilling sites by ignoring their climate impacts is over. The courts have agreed with what climate campaigners have said all along. Rosebank and Jackdaw are unlawful, and their full climate impacts must now be properly considered. Today's ruling means the decisions on Jackdaw and Rosebank are set to return to the UK government, which has pledged not to grant any new licences for oil and gas in the dwindling North Sea basin, although technically that does not include granting production licences, which is what both Rosebank and Jackdaw would require. A spokesperson for the Department of Energy and Security and Net Zero, the DESNZ, said the government had already consulted on revised environmental guidance to take into account emissions from burning extracted oil and gas, and is expected to report back in the spring. Apparently Equinor and Shell, the two people so Equinor were Rosebank and Shell were Jackdaw, have both welcomed the news despite it putting delays, and both stand by their previous statements of saying that extracting this oil and gas would help energy security in the UK and it would provide a lot of jobs. But as we do know that a lot of this oil and gas that is extracted gets put on the market and sold overseas, so it doesn't actually necessarily mean we'll be using it in the UK. I get confused with stuff like this because it is a good win. It's clearly a good win. The courts have said it's unlawful. But my first question, and I messaged you today, Nadia, I said, what happens now? Like, what does that mean, right? When something is found unlawful, what does that mean? Does that mean it's over, it's done? What work's got to be next? So I did a bit of research. I also spoke to a friend that works in a lot of government policy and legislation, and has done for a very long time as well, and said, hey, bud, like, what happens when something's found unlawful from a previous government? What does it mean? What happens? And he gave me this bit of information, which I thought was very helpful to share. He said, if something is ruled unlawful, it can go ahead if, 1, they launch a successful appeal against the ruling and it is ruled lawful, which is unlikely in this scenario. 2, they deal with the aspect of the application that was ruled unlawful. And 3, the law is changed altogether. He then added, in this case, the ruling is that the approval was given by the last government on an unlawful basis because of Equinor's application didn't take into account future emissions based on burning the extracted oil, like we just read out. This means Equinor can now resubmit their application, now taking into account the downstream emissions, adapting their plans as necessary, in brackets basically if it's possible, to meet environmental requirements. Changing the law-wise, that would basically mean abandoning or postponing net zeros if the government was going to do that, their plans. I don't know if government would do that.
I would love to see a fudged application form from Rosebank saying, like, okay, so all of the carbon emissions from all of the oil that we're going to extract, how many trees do we have to plant to offset the environmental impact of everything that we're about to plough out of the earth?
I don't even think they work it out. They just put 1 million trees. Just put 1 million.
And we're all going to have, all our staff from now on are going to have reusable water bottles.
Yeah,
and,
yeah. And no more chewing gum in the office. I think news like this is really interesting because it gave me such a bump this morning. Like, yes, come on, we can do this, right? Good step forward. The courts are on our side. Now, and then my brain automatically went, okay, right. Now, what the fuck are they going to do now? Like, what are the government going to do?
I know.
Like,
this is always the ping pong. This is the backwards and forwards.
It's
like,
almost
right.
like, and I am not praising the Tory government. You guys know that, but at least with the Tory government, I knew exactly what they were probably going to do. They'd fuck it up, right? But with Labour, they're keeping me on this kind of, what are you going to do? Like, I don't know. My only security I'm thinking is Ed Miliband is in the environment bit. So that's a good thing because he's quite good at this stuff. But they did just authorise Heathrow another runway, which is not good.
Well, there's another bit of fucking news this week.
Yeah, exactly. So that's not a good thing.
Which is a whole set. We could talk for half an hour on that.
Yeah, I just don't know what way our government are going to go. Are they going to stop Rosebank and Jackdaw?
The game playing that's involved in this is just like, I was actually looking at a timeline of Heathrow from 2003 of like, it's been approved, it's not been approved, it's going to go ahead, it's not going to go ahead, it's been delayed, and just backwards and forwards. It's like, nobody really wants this. No, and I don't. Yeah, it's really hard to. I don't know. Basically, what the question that we're asking, the integrity behind the zero emissions target, and the integrity behind our habitats regulations, and the environmental impact assessments. Like, if they were values that were upheld by everybody, this would be a completely different scenario. And I guess that's why we just have to like watch and figure out. Yeah. What their values are.
You're exactly right. It is a case of we have to now sit and watch. Yeah, it's and I think that's where the tricky part is, because it starts to make you feel like, again, I don't have any control over this.
But it's good that it gives precedence. It gives precedence for the next big development. So at least now that's starting to be recognised.
That's going to be added. Yeah, it's going to be recognised in law and stuff. And
actually, drilling into the sea, it's probably going to piss off a few octopuses. The odd dolphin's going to be like, what the hell? That's the environmental impact assessment that's done, but actually it's the after effect, which is why I actually think this needs to be applied for every capitalist venture. So H&M, yes, the environmental impact assessment of getting the cotton to make the thing and import it, but what about after the product has been sold? Then that kind of, or that that polyester top that you've sold for $5.99. Then when it's broken down into microplastics and then it's eaten by, often these companies need to be, if there was a genuine environmental impact assessment for every organisation, and then there was a financial penalty, most organisations couldn't make a profit.
So with Rosebank and Jackdaw Nerds, what we're basically saying is it's a very good win that the courts have ruled that unlawful. It's now a waiting game. We have to sit and wait to see what our governments are going to do. Basically, there's a few options. It might take a few months. Now's the time to hunker down and read lots about the campaign and wait for updates. So there's some online accounts on Instagram. Stop Cambo is a really good one to follow, and you can sign up to their mailing list and they will update you on pretty much every single development about this. Tori Choi is a very good person on Instagram that communicates this as well. Give her a follow. Get clued up. Make sure you know what's going on. When there's a call to action, we'll be the first, one of the first to tell you what it is.
Well, now we're weekly.
Yeah.
We will be here every week to give you those updates, just in case you feel like, actually, it feels like a lot. I'm having to read about a lot. Don't worry.
We got you back. Thanks for tuning into another Nature News, nerds. Lovely to talk to you.
Big plans, isn't it?
I know, lots going on in January. Jesus. And how is it still January? Lovely to chat to you, nerds. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Blue Sky at Into the Wild Pod. Anything you have that you can throw towards your favourite nature and conservation podcast to keep us going is greatly appreciated. Ko-fi.com/Into the Wild Pod. The price of a coffee. Throw it our way. We'd love you forever. Everything we've discussed today, the links are in the write-up of this episode, including our social medias, mine and Nadia's, and the podcast, and our Ko-fi link as well. But until next week, look after yourselves.
Have a good one.
And speak to you soon.